Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another very dodgy Crazy House stream. Early morning here in Sydney, 7 a.m. And we're going to jump into the Daily Crazyhouse Arena. And if you do happen to be new to leechess.org, you do this by the following. Go to play arena tournaments. Open up arena tournaments and scroll down to find Daily Crazyhouse Arena, 13 players so far. And we're going to jump in. Zaraza is also streaming. So let's jump straight in there. Wearing my Czech Tour t-shirt from 2002 when I was playing a little bit of chess a long time ago as a backpacker. Paying about $5 a night for accommodation. Lots of fun. Meeting some Bughouse players in real life who I knew from Fix. It's the free internet chess server. And was doing a little bit of traveling with a Ukrainian friend called Fermi. Some people who are old Fixers might remember. So my first opponent here is Gotchi, who I have a 10-1 record against, but sometimes some tough games. So let's try something, a little bit different. Call it the Katas system. It's one of his favorites with an early e5, knight at h4. Usually expect rook g1. And then I think d5 is the sharpest move here. Intending to throw in a bishop b4. I'm already struggling to remember. I think the move here is pawn at d2, and then that entices the bishop to come back. Hello, Pawn Wonder. Where are you from, by the way? I've seen you on other streams, probably Jack's. Yeah, so pawn at d2, and then we take on e4, so that just preserves the knight here on h4. Intending, of course, knight takes f3. Check, it's 7 in the morning. The last 3 streams have been even earlier than this, including a horrifying 3 a.m. stream in the Shield, where I was playing about as good as you can imagine after 1 hour's sleep. Alright, not sure. I have a lot of time on the clock, so it's very different to those Ultra Bullets 7.5 second berserking arenas that Jack and Ari do. So thinking moves like pawn at d4, maybe bishop b4. I'm not quite sure about this. Probably pawn at d4. Looks good. I take this and knight at f3. Welcome GMBMW. So yeah, 7 in the morning is a little bit friendlier than 3 a.m., especially on a Saturday. And I tried to catch up some sleep, which I've been sorely missing during the week. My biggest problem when trying to sleep, I just don't sleep for a big chunk of hours. It's more like I have 1 or 2 hours sleep and then I wake up for some reason. And I don't even feel like I'm a light sleeper. It's just, I don't know, a bad habit. It's not really something I can control. Just waking up every couple of hours instead of going into a deep sleep for 6 or 8 hours. So take on c3. What's happening here? Take. My king is quite safe. I don't see a great problem in taking on c3. This knight doesn't have any good moves anyway. I don't have any pieces in hand, so I really don't see any option. Yeah, so that was the Shield on Tuesday morning Sydney time, earlier this week. And we also had the yearly Crazyhouse Arena last week on Friday morning. And there was an Elite Arena on Saturday, which I was also streaming. So it's on every weekend. Just depends on things like team battles and titled arenas as to which day it's on. It's, yeah, sometimes Friday night, sometimes Saturday night European time. Thinking about it, 1+2 is not my favorite time control to play quality Crazy House and stream. But we'll see how we go tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Sydney time. So I'd probably put this queen on somewhere, so I can trade it back at will. Because knight at f3, queen at e1 is a typical idea. Although he can take back with the bishop, and then if he still has this one here covering d2, there's no mating patterns. Yeah, so it alternates between 3+0 and 1+2. And I'm not sure who chose the time control, but maybe the finisher, because he's the one that sets up the time controls with a poll on the Discord server as to the house Discord server as to who favors what time control. I remember Jasugi saying he doesn't like 1+2, or was it 1+1, because he thinks he's got a lot of times, so then he flags more easily than in 1+0 when he just has to race all the way to the end. So Jasugi being the current world champion Crazy House player, Jasugi99, who defeated Oppowezen in the final, which you might have caught with Janli, Yasaserawan and Clearcast also jumping into the call. So knight at f3 is a tricky move here. Queen takes, and we have a mate on d2. Or is it better to just take the queen? Then bishop takes clears the square f1, so I like this move better. So d2 being the key square here. So Pawn Wonder is from Namibia. To be honest, I could not locate the precise point in your continent. Where is Namibia? Is it in the middle? Is it in the west side, the east side? I couldn't locate it precisely on a map. Is the stream stuttering? Well, on OBS there's a green light when it's a steady stream, so it says 1800 kilobytes per second. Seems okay on my end. Oh, I could take a piece with check. I could even grab the bishop. Anything looks good here. Now, somebody once told me, I'm not sure whether they were joking, somebody once told me that Uganda has better internet than Australia. So I'm not sure if they were serious or not. Alright, we won the first game. So Tornon has joined, 2300. Who else have we got? I think Alduto is also here, 2400. So we have some good opposition. Might just Bozak this one against 1800 and below. Or just above. The thing is, if I get talking, then yeah, I forget about the time and I'm reading the chat. But yeah, Australians, as GM BMW is saying, that's a lot of syllables, by the way. Do you have a nickname, GM? Just call you BMW? Because you know Aussies don't like saying too many syllables in names. Yeah, he's saying Australians have 2 bar connections usually to Lee Chess. It is a long way from Australia. I think the other chess server has a slightly better connection. During apartheid, we were called Southwest Africa. Okay, I didn't know that, Pawn Wonder. So take here, we have e2 covered. There's no tricky checkmates with the queen drop. I just hopefully smashing through, although he does have a pawn for d7, so I'm not exactly sure if I'm completely winning here. I wasn't expecting d takes e5 though. Now I have a big choice. c7 check, grab the queen, or even this one looks good. I'll go for this check here, because then I can take the rook and then possibly a knight at c7. Or I could even play knight at c7 check first and then keep the queen. So what happens then? He puts it back. Well, I don't see anything too convincing after that, so I'm going to go this way. Still have the bishop and the knight covering e2. So it's all the way down the bottom of Africa, just next to South Africa. Somebody was talking about the old Lethal Weapon 2 quote with Danny Glover the other day. Knight at c7. You know, the one where the travel agent goes, "You should listen to your friend. You don't want to go to South Africa." Papa 111 will berserk this one too. And we'll try a French defense. E6, d5. d4. Alright, we'll play copy house for a few moves. Bishop d3. I will make a fork. There's bishop b5 check. Sometimes c6 is a bit weakening. I think it's okay in this position. There's different ways to block. I'm going to go bishop e7 and c6. Queen e7 was probably okay too, or even bishop e6. Not sure about this piece sack. Seems very loose. We're dropping pieces everywhere. Alright, he's resigned already. Do any top players use keyboard to drop pieces? That's a good question. I mean, it's not really so relevant in the time control we are currently playing. I guess bullet players may use the keyboard. There's some function, is it? Is it when you go shift and then 1 for the pawn, 2 for the knight, and so on, up to 5 for the queen? Pawn Wonder says I'm absolute rubbish at ZH, some people call it. That's more American English, isn't it? ZH. ZH, we would say. Any tips? Yeah, I tried at BMW, but it doesn't really save a lot of time for me. I just don't think about it during a time scramble. Any tips? General tips? Don't move any pawns apart from D and E, just like Bughouse. It's a bit hard to give general advice on castling because usually it's okay if they don't have an early pawn at h3 drop to castle. But it's very situational dependent whether castling is a good idea or not. Bishop at e6. Alright, so he's giving a piece back in this line. So he's going for extra safety. Obviously he can't take because of a double checkmate. Pawn at d3. He's playing reasonably quickly. I wonder if I can sack the queen. Or do I have to sack the queen here? Because queen e3... let's see. Queen e3, dc2. Pawn takes, bishop takes. What do I have after that? He just has a pawn in hand. I would rather sack the queen. So let's calculate a little bit. D takes e2, e takes f7 check, king takes. I have pawn, bishop, knight in hand. And he would only have a couple of pawns, so at the end of this I can at least play knight takes e2 for extra safety. I do like the look of a queen sack. So I could throw in a knight check first on g5 perhaps? Or e5. I mean, g5 is safer. Yeah, so John Lee, I'm sure you've heard of John Lee, Aussie Crazy House streamer, who's been streaming for a lot longer than me, maybe 6 years or so. He has little time at the moment because he's got a wife and 2 kids, a full-time job, and not a lot of time. He was also the main organizer for the Crazy House World Championship last year. So that's why he doesn't have a lot of free time to do streaming. But if you look for his YouTube video, that's John Lee Crazy House, you'll find some excellent training resources. And it's good to just follow the games of the top players. Yeah, so another point of discussion in Crazy House is the material imbalance. So a queen is worth about the same as 2 minor pieces, but if you have the initiative like this and the opponent's king has been displaced, then yeah, you can see this is only 1 minor piece plus a pawn, but even this could be worth a queen. Because generally the more trades that happen on the board, the better for the attacking side. It's still a matter of finding a continuation from here. I was hoping he dropped the pawn because then I'd have a long distance check. I'm even thinking a move like b3 to open up bishop a3. I don't mind if he takes here because he still doesn't have a great threat against me. Hey, welcome Alduto. I don't know why Legion called you Adulto. Is that on purpose or just by accident? He says it's often difficult to defend with a queen without giving it back. That's true. So if there's no direct way to attack with the queen in hand against your opponent's king, then you often have to put it back for defense. And it can easily get harassed. I think bishop a3 check here, although king d7, this bishop is defending well. So I may not have done this the right way. Let's see, now the bishop is just hanging. So how about knight somewhere, just not sure where. Pawn at e6 is also possible. Pawn at e6 check. He might even drop back to c8. He can take this. Knight takes, pawn takes. I think in that case it's safe to grab the queen. There's also knight d4, and we might trade this way. Oh no, I can't do that. So probably start with pawn e6. Yeah, even bishop e6 just to force a trade here. It could have even been better than pawn at e6. Yeah, I used to know a Filipino chess player from Sydney called Agulto, starting with AG. Agulto. So quite an original position for both of us. I've had something similar against Bugzilla. Yeah, I was expecting him to just go king c8 and sack the knight here. So my attack is kind of petered out a bit. Do I just leave this knight to be taken on e2? So I really have to get rid of this bishop here. Take on f8 and pawn at e7. Yeah, otherwise I am giving up a lot of material. I don't mind so much losing the knight because I don't see a direct threat against the king, although bishop takes e4, getting two knights is a bit scary. Because then he's got d2 and c2 available. No, rook takes f8. Maybe he was afraid of... Alright, I do have to focus a bit more. Gonna need some good ideas to come away with a win here. Bishop at b5 perhaps. Just don't quite have enough on d7. And it seems to be the only entry point. I don't think I quite have enough time to get in via c6 and b7. He's just going to leave this knight here until he has to sack it on d7. I think I'm in a bit of trouble here after d takes e2 and then bishop takes e4. Watch out for the rook also on the f-file. Queen at e5. Ah, nice move. So I think here is a good time to drop the... I might even drop the bishop, although it looks a bit silly. But I might need a pawn later for the 7th rank. Or even pawn at d4 to block the threat. He's thinking about sacking the queen. So I need two knights to get in on a6 and c6. Although the bishop here does mean that a rook on c8 is not so useful. I really need him to take a knight and then put it back somewhere. Sometimes you need some help from your opponent in Crazy House. So how to stop queen takes e1. Castling I don't like because then d takes e2 does come with a threat. Knight e to c3 is possible. No, he's going to sack the queen. And try to slow down my attack. So what do we have? Knight. I'm going to go... No, I keep changing my mind. Knight c3. Because I'm really not sure what's going on. I just got to move. Alright, I might stop talking for a second. Maybe get in via e7, a6, e6. Really depends. Because I'm not exactly sure what he's threatening. Ah, d takes c2. Okay. So now I'm going to get out of here by castling. And he has a lot of pawns. That's a worry. Yeah. Might even take with the knight and allow pawn at e2. This is... Is this a threat? Yeah, it is. I'm going to have to defend, sadly. Yeah, this is not looking so good. Yeah, good move again. Just have to go for the attack. Yeah, it's running out. Don't know what to do. No ideas left. Yeah, well played, Matzo. Not sure. What was the first mistake? Perhaps bishop at e6 check and not allowing the king to get back to c8 so easily. Because in that case the queen on d8 would be hanging. Maybe he could take everything in those lines with king takes e6 and just go for the material. So that was a real struggle between the material imbalance and not to sack too many pieces and the black king's safety. Yeah, not to allow too many pawns to encroach my second rank. So pawn at b2 and pawn at c2 was a nice way for black to get in and make me waste time defending. How often do they have Crazy House prize tournaments? Yeah, Mixu's saying the whole year. Although if you're playing for prize money, playing in the CWC is probably not the most economically efficient and time efficient tournament to play in. You might have to sponsor your own tournament if you want to play in a prize tournament. Although it's more for the Crazy House community, not yourself if you're sponsoring. Not too often. If you look at my YouTube channel right down the bottom, there are some old tournaments from 3 years ago, which were not played on Lichess. It doesn't happen very often. A lot of people just end up donating the prize money back to Lichess or back to the tournament. Yeah, so the Crazy House World Championship. What's the best way to find information, Mixu? If you just go to the forum and type CWC. And then there haven't been any posts or updates in a while, but the 1st of March is a key date, I think, when the pairings come out? Very interesting defensive move from Zarza, trying to stop knight at e5. Although, oops, not sure what's happening with the bishop on f8, how she's going to develop the bishop on f8. So if I lose the game, especially with white, I always like to think about it and find the first mistake. It's a lot more constructive doing it that way than... Oh yeah, keep an eye on the Crazy House World Championship team on Lichess. If you join that, there'll be updates posted. Take, or might even come back here, try and keep the pin. Yeah, I think it's more constructive to try and find your own mistakes, and maybe even entertaining to do it on stream while you're playing another game. So, if you do remember the previous game, there was a queen sack and a knight drop on g5 and then a recapture on e2. And what I'm waiting for is for black to drop the pawn, and then I can throw in the bishop on a3 where there's only the queen to block the checks. But then he played some bishop f5, and that cleared a pathway for the king to get back to c8. So I think it's key for white to find a way to stop the king coming back to c8, or at least create some havoc on the board before black has a chance to get away. So she's definitely going to trade this bishop. I'm not sure whether I want to take on e6 just yet. Maybe better to just castle and... Yeah, I'm not sure about this. And allow e takes d5, rook e1 check. Maybe a blocker back on e7. And then we'll find a way to attack the queen a few times, maybe involving a knight sack on e5. So Pawn Wonder saying in Nigeria chess is quite popular. Yeah, they have something called CNO, which is the... What is it? The National Chess Association of Nigeria. And there's a subsection with Crazyhouse or something. Rook e1 check, so we're going to get the line discussed, although I wasn't expecting this one because there is knight at c6. I'm not sure whether to throw in pawn at h6 first, but this surely looks like a good idea. Queen d6. So in this case, castling, it's not going to be safe if I waste a few moves over here because of pawn at h3. Even then, black will need a heavy piece to really launch anything serious. But I think here I just grab the bishop. The queen doesn't pose a threat against the king. This is quite difficult to respond because there's most likely a forced mate after rook takes e7. And otherwise the black king is stranded and cannot castle. Pawn at e5. So it's either knight takes c8 or knight on f5. Yeah, so then we can try and attack g7 with check. Maybe bishop at c6 also. So yeah, look out for a date the 1st of March. I think something is happening on the 1st of March with regard to Crazyhouse World Championship announcements. I know Max from Australia is very exciting. That's GM Craze. Very excited to take part for the first time. Pawn at b7. Or I may as well just grab the pawn with check first before we try anything too fancy. Bishop at c8 is another approach. And often you sack the promoted queen for something just to get another piece in your hand. Let's see if I can find something better. Rook takes a6, intending pawn at c6 perhaps. Yeah, I gotta watch out for rook g8. But I think this is quite a sudden counterattack. Pawn at c6. I can always block out the g-file with pawn at g5 if needed. Or even bishop to g5. Make some use of the bishop already on the board. Bishop at h6 for defense even if I need to. It's quite important in Crazyhouse to remember which is the fake queen, which is this one here. And yeah, I can choose to sack it for whatever I want. So thinking about queen takes, not sure. Queen takes b7 and rook back on b8. So then if bishop goes back, I can drop the pawn on b7. Otherwise I'll collect some more pieces. Rook g8. Okay, so now I'm going to do the move said before, because then rook takes g7 can be answered by bishop takes f6 check. And this one probably just knight takes e5, because then there are multiple points of entry. I can sack for another knight to put on c6 if needed. There's just too many holes in black's position. Queen d6 allows knight takes f7 and resigns. Right, so it's a 1.5 hour tournament, the Daily Crazyhouse Arena. Bit shorter than the big events that have happened in the last week or so. So we started again with the yearly, which was 5 hours, starting at 4 a.m. Sydney time. Then there's the Elite Crazy House every weekend. That's 2 hours of 3+0 or 1+2. And then we had the 6-hour Shield on Tuesday morning. Very, very, very early. We call it the graveyard shift, starting at 3 a.m. when you're streaming. Or it's called the graveyard shift when you're hosting a radio show. And yeah, I do have to get up about 6 a.m. normally for work on weekdays. But the weekend is a bit more chill for me. I don't have any fixed plans on the weekend. So Chess Friendship, he's quite a decent defender for his rating, like 2000, 2100. Often takes quite a long time to really bust through his defenses. But usually black is very comfortable when white plays bishop c4 in French type positions, because yeah, I know the scoreline 20-0, but he's often got good positions and then I somehow trick him in the end. Yeah, pawn at g5, good move. So I don't want to play knight d4 because he's just going to grab too many pieces for the queen. I may have to allow some knight at g7 check after g takes f6, because only a knight in hand is not going to do so much damage. I preferred that than moving the knight and yeah, allowing knight takes d5, for example. Yeah, so this is only a check. He doesn't have a pawn for g7, and even then I still have a tempo to defend. Queen takes c4, so now's a good time to play rook g8. Unless there is a better move, I'll play rook g8 straight away. Yeah, don't see a better move. I've got to watch out for knight at h6, because then, of course, f7 is hanging. But then, probably bishop e6, although pawn at d5 may be a good response. So there's also a simple move, rook g7. Does it hold in defense? I think it does. So no need to allow pawn at d5 with gain of tempo and gain of a piece. I mean, I really don't want to allow stuff like pawn at d5, knight e5 takes, and then the threat is g takes f7 check with the rook still hanging on g8. So that's why the rook here certainly belongs on g7. So d3, just opening up the bishop. Not sure what else it does. And again, I want to wait for that pawn to land before throwing in a move like bishop e6. So the next move is not so obvious for me. Perhaps attack the knight and then bishop at d5. So looking at a move like pawn at d4. I don't see any direct way to get in via g2 because the rook is needed to cover f7 for the moment. So I think pawn at d4 makes some sense. Yeah, I tend to talk and analyze on stream depending on the time available to me. So if I do play a slower time limit like this, it doesn't necessarily mean that I won't get into time trouble, because it just means I can ramble on more and explain more my sometimes dubious ideas, like against Matza. Yeah, but I do think the key moment was after bishop f5. Probably should have taken a risk and gone bishop at e6 check. Yeah, it's hard to know when to allow d takes e2 when there's a knight hanging on e2, and when to move it out of the way. Yeah, maybe knight g3 was also possible there. So pawn at e4, he has no pieces in hand, which means In some situations, you're looking out for a long distance check. So if he has to respond b4, then can possibly sack a piece on b4 now that the knight is pinned. Although it could just be a waste of a bishop for a5. Now what else can I do? Bishop at a6. He might sack the queen and then put it back on b7, although that's nothing much. What else to do with the bishop? Other moves, I don't want to play knight e5 because it allows some check on c7. So what about bishop at a5 followed by knight e5? But then it's not so clear. Pawn at e3. The knight is not hanging as yet. I'm going to go bishop at a5 check. Yeah, intending knight e5 just to pose a question to the queen. Does he want to take on d4? And then I might follow up with pawn at c6. Even pawn to c6 possibly, just to preserve another pawn. King f1, alright. So here if he checks, I can defend this way. Although probably queen a4 check is the move, and then if c6, can I just put the pawn to c6 here? Do I need to? I've got lots of coverage on c7. It might be my downfall, but we'll see what happens. Sometimes he can throw in pawn at h3 and hope to collect another pawn somehow. Yeah, like bishop takes, or if knight takes first, bishop takes, then I have to find a way to collect another pawn. Even by sacking a piece here or here, and then he has to respond to the threat of pawn at g2. Pawn at f5. So, what is going on here? Which way do I take first? There is also the option of bishop back to b6. I'm going to take with the bishop, just so bishop b6 comes with a tempo. There's no need to collect the pawn on d5 just at the moment. I'm just not quite sure whether the queen is going to be safe in the long term. But now he has a bishop in hand. There is a sneaky bishop at h8. I just haven't quite found anything really decisive at the moment. Queen takes d5. Not that convincing. Perhaps just put another knight on the board and keep harassing the queen. He might come all the way over here. Hmm, 47 seconds. Keep an eye on the time. Yeah, I was thinking about a knight sack now on d3. Or, yeah, I'm just not sure whether to play pawn at g5 and block out the g file or not. So I'm not really threatening anything at the moment. Perhaps knight takes c1 and bishop at g5, although even that is not such a strong threat. It's quite a complicated position. I agree. I have no idea what's going on either. That makes two of us. I just know I've got 31 seconds left. I have to move. Knight takes f7. What? Can you really do this? Alright, I'm gonna make him think about d1 equals queen at least. Just go king f8. Don't need to take this straight away. Yeah, we got him. Somebody 2200 told me nobody except the top players have any idea what they're doing. But even the top players, I mean, I would say compared to top level of chess, the blunder rate in Crazy House is much higher. I mean, say relatively at the same time control, like let's say 3 plus 2. I think the blunder rate, the game is just so tactical that it's so easy to miss. I'm not even talking, 5, 6, 7 move combination. It's even easy to miss 1 or 2 move combinations when pieces just start appearing everywhere and both sides are attacking. Ah, you didn't give me a chance to berserk. Berserk back. I would have for a 1900. I'm not so interested in streaming and berserking. Bishop c4. d6 we could say is a non-critical move in the opening. It might be solid in chess, but in Crazy House you're just not going to get away with making so many vulnerable points in your queenside so early in the game. Now is a good time to sack. And many options here. Knight at g5 may not be the best move because then pawn at h6. He could even get back this way via f8, pawn here, king e8. And then he's always got d7. Pawn at e6 is a funny move because then you're drawing the bishop out, then knight at g5 check. Although king e8, my queen is still hanging. So knight at h6 is also possible, but I'd rather just save the queen first. Let him put back a piece on e6 and then drop the knight on g5 check. Oops, spilled the coffee. And if this one then could even think about pawn at h6. Bishop h6 is also possible, but yeah, with this one I still need 2 pawns for g7, f7. How do I get a second pawn? Pawn at g7, king e8. Sacking the queen doesn't quite work. So what else? Again, probably haven't done this in the most optimal way. Pawn at f7 starting, rook takes g2, and then a pawn is just absolutely killing, but I can't sack here because I need the queen to guard f7. Another move could be something like knight at g5. And then just posing the question, how's black going to cover everything? I am Dale, how's it going? Early morning. Have you fixed up your sleep schedule yet? I'm trying to, but it's just too hard when I have to get up 6 AM Monday to Friday anyway. Alright, bishop takes g5. We got some slower Crazy House today, so I'm not so panicked. Coaching at 9 AM, so forced to today. Pawn at g7 first or rook at h8 first? That's the main question here. Yeah, hard to say. They both look good to me. Although I still don't quite see any direct way in to get to the king. Pawn at g7 check. Am I just running around in circles? Rook takes, bishop takes. Queen takes, knight takes. What do I have? Knight and bishop in hand. It's not enough. So I might have to play a sad move and back off somehow with the queen, or throw in some knight d5. But then knight takes, and then the bishop is hanging here. Yeah, I'm going to go knight d5 because there's a bit of a trick that I see. Typically here you'd want to play like a triangle with knight d5 and knight e7. But I think there's a problem if you do this, that I can take on g8 in the end. And then that's a way to open up these squares f7 and e6. Oh, I've just completely miscalculated because I forgot the knight was also covering g8. So I think I'm getting absolutely killed on material in this game. So rook takes. Let's see if we can make it work anyway. Alright, this is a bit of a struggle. I should be grateful my opponent berserked in this game because he's defending well. I think I'm just absolutely busted. It's alright, we can have a good laugh about it. Yeah, I might be forced to play something like bishop at d5. So yeah, maybe rook at h8 just doesn't quite work. And a castle queenside and just hope for the best. I can't see any immediate way to take advantage of any of these squares. Oh, knight at b6, another good move. Wow. This is incredible. My opponent's playing like an absolute beast for a 1900. Pawn at c4. Queen comes over to f3. Yeah, see ya, Pawn Wonder. He's going to stick to normal chess for now. Knight at d4. Rook takes allows rook at a1. I don't think I want to do that. But now do we have rook takes g8? I got to try it and complicate the game at least. Oh, this is unbelievable. I have a mate in 2, don't I? You should have taken with the knight on g8. Yeah, very lucky to get away with that one. Queen takes b6, taking a knight, gave mate, knight at f6. So after pawn at c4, you mean? Yeah, maybe that's true. So he had to defend on f6. Yeah, I don't know. I know I messed up. Probably before. Thanks, Joanna, for the follow. Yeah, I messed up somewhere, just giving away too many pieces. I wonder if he's going to play d4 or e4. Yeah, I don't know what to do here. Is there anything except for d4, d5 systems? Could try e6 and then go for non-symmetry. So do the Ari opening with bishop b4. Yeah, he did well in bullet, or was it hyper bullet against me? Playing this, although bishop takes c3 is not meant to be so good. Obviously I completely messed it up afterwards. Bishop takes, knight takes. So this has been played hundreds and hundreds of times. Grab the queen, pawn at e4. We'll see how much my opponent knows. I'm not so familiar with this rook takes a1. Rook a takes a1. So it gives me a chance to save the queen with pawn at e7, but then knight at h5 is quite dangerous, because then the bishop is already on h7. You don't want to play rook g8. So any other options? Could just go pawn at e4 and give the queen back. Other options, queen at g4. Maybe not so convincing. Alright, let's slow down a little bit. Queen takes g5 is also possible. Yeah, it's really hard to see what is the best move. I do try to slow down when I got time and try and find the optimal move. So either pawn at e4, queen takes g5, or maybe some tricky queen at g4 and then sacking the knight here, and knight at h3. Leaning towards pawn at e4. So bishop takes d8, e takes f3, and then already threatening knight at h3 with mate, so he has to defend with something like bishop at h3. And then I've got to count the diagonal pieces because Yeah, I can play knight at f4 if I haven't taken back the bishop on d8. If I have taken back the bishop, I've got to watch out for moves like queen at g5 and then picking off the knight on f4. So just giving some random thoughts while I'm looking for a sponge to clean up the coffee I spilled earlier. Yeah, I used to work on the weekends as well as weekdays. It's long weekdays for me, so I usually get up at 6 and then sometimes don't get home till 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. So normally I'm just totally exhausted on weekdays when I get home. Weekends have a bit more time. It's a lot more chill. Alright, my opponent is also taking some. Bishop takes d8. I'm just going to play this straight away because I know the knight is covering the checkmate square on e7. So what do we expect here? Something like queen at g3, queen at g4 to defend. Have to be very careful to watch out for g7. And I have seen lines where you can take the bishop, allow queen at g7, and then put the queen back on g8. And even if they go bishop at, you block, they take here, they've got big problems down the g file. If you're still, or if you're holding a heavy piece, or you can grab a heavy piece, it's very complicated with those kind of tactics. Knight at h3, I don't yet have a pawn for g2, so there's no mates. So what does that mean? Could start with knight at f4. Or let's see what happens after check, king h1 and then knight at f4, threatening queen at g1 and queen at g2 at the same time. So usually in those sort of positions, the only way to defend is by dropping a queen. So let's say queen at g3. And I really want a pawn for g2. So I could grab one of these pawns here. Now that he's dropped his queen, I could play king takes bishop. I could play knight takes bishop. Or I could start with knight at f4. It's really difficult to know what is the best. Let's try this now that there's no check picking up the knight. And a typical beginner's trick is that if ever white plays bishop b5, you've got to watch out for a queen at e7 sneaky mate. So that's sometimes an indication that you should play bishop d7 takes and then rook takes d8. Sometimes you can get away with king takes d8 if you have a thread, but often pawn at d6 is just devastating for the black king. So queen at g3 allows knight at e2, and perhaps this is a better way that I haven't committed to the move knight at h3 check yet, because yeah, I mean, it might not be so great even after I have the two queens and the bishop. Because if the king goes to g2, I didn't see a direct threat. Even here, f takes, and still got to do a little bit of work to get in. Let's see, queen at e2, bishop at h3. Yeah, we'll start with bishop at h3. Pawn at, and then queen at e2. So now that he can't take on h3 because I had two queens in hand. And this should be decisive. Queen takes f3. Yeah, can we just sack the house, or should I just go more slowly and put on the pawns? Yeah, oh, hang on. Should calculate. Takes pawn at f3. Can't take back. So king is forced out here. What do I have left? Pawn, knight, queen. Pawn at g4. King takes h5. It should be enough. Yeah, there's h5. Yeah, queen h5 also. I'm thinking pawn at g4 is probably enough as well. But yeah, this is just a mate in two. pawn at g4. Hey, Clearcast! How you going? You've been crushing me with the white pieces. I think I've had something like seven blacks in a row. So, no, I've been absolutely destroyed with the black pieces in recent games against you. You've been playing super solid. I think looking back on the games, there was only one big chance that I missed. There was some knight fork in a time scramble. But apart from that, yeah, I've been absolutely destroyed. So playing Clearcast in the yearly, and was it the elite or the shield? Thanks for the follow, Gians. I think I've seen you in, was it the Daily Insanity stream in the evening? Oh, it's good we're all streaming at different times, eh? So Zelo has taken the midnight shift. And yeah, I wouldn't rely on me to take the 3 a.m. shift every day like I did on Friday. That's a bit rough on a weekday, eh? So Daily Insanity usually starts, around 6-7 p.m. Aussie time. And sometimes Ari at about 9 or 10. So I've never done a raid. You'll have to tell me how to do it and give me some tips. So yeah, I'm not sure how long I'm going to go for. Sometimes I finish at the end of the arenas, but if I still have coffee in my cup after the spill, could go a little bit longer. Take some challenges, or could even play some casual bullet Crazy House. Okay, now the scoreline is 8-1 against Salukio, and I did lose the last game. I think that game I was having lunch and I was trying to buzz away the flies who were all swarming around my lunch. And he flagged me at the end when I was doing some terrible pre-move drops on the iPhone. Absolutely shocking game, but very amusing anyway if you were following the game yesterday. He was he had a good position. He survived and was running out his king to c6 or something. I couldn't find a way to finish him off. It was quite a funny game, and just doing some absolutely horrific blunders in time scramble at the end. Yeah, where do we start? Knight at f4 perhaps. I'm going to build up an attack on the king side now this diagonal is open. The knight on e3 of course helps him to defend. So some options. Do we take on d4? Watch out for some discovered attack trick with knight c4. And what happens then? Queen f5, is it safe? I don't mind if he takes here, then I can choose what to do with the knight on f4. Hey Lucas, just had a mini match against slash raid and then name channel. So yeah, we'll see who's streaming later, and I can pass the ball on to somebody. I mean, I can always. I was going to say knight takes e2 check, but then there'll be some discovered attack tricks here. Knight takes g2 is an interesting alternative. We'll go for the sharp line with queen f5. I've probably missed some dirty trick. After queen f5. Like, is there some tricky pawn deflection? Ultra ZH, top quality stuff, that's right. So Mugwort already taking more time than all the last 4 games put together. I literally don't see any other legal moves, so I'm going to play queen f5. Yeah, so I've even been berserking in 1-0 and 15 seconds. What's going on? I feel like I'm missing something because I'm not paying attention. And sometimes in Crazy House, when you have a few pieces in hand, it's not so bad to be undeveloped, because the bishops, in many situations, help to protect your king. Even if this was check, I can still put a pawn on somewhere, so it's not so bad. Queen h6 now, there's no knight drops to harass the queen. I could have possibly defended the d pawn a bit better, but then there was knight at e5, which I didn't like the look of. Yeah, interesting to see how Craze is going to do in a slower time control than 1-0, which he normally plays. So bishop at d6 is... what would we say? Expected? Bishop at d8 if I want to avoid the trades. So if he does want to take the bishop, he has bishop at g5, but I can also take with the queen. Bishop at f4, pawn at e5. Oh, the knight will be hanging here, so... yeah, maybe even queen takes. He doesn't have a knight for b5, which would be very nasty. I didn't see Peng's name in CWC, so perhaps not this year. Also not GSVC. So those were two of the candidates last year. Alright, can we pick off a knight, or is that too dangerous? With knight b5 coming. Ooh, that is a dirty trick. Knight b5. Queen e5, bishop at f4. That is a very, very, very dirty trick. So I might have to play something like queen d6 if I want to take the knight on d5. Knight takes, bishop takes. And then I have a couple of knights for the queen. Is that so bad? It's not necessary. I mean, I can always just trade here, or pawn at h3. Ah, no, knight b5's coming. So probably just take here. Alright, I really got to be careful of knight at b5 coming. So pawn at c6. Maybe some knight sack on c7, and then don't quite see a follow-up. There's also queen e4 check. But that looks okay. You might want to sack this way. Take, king d8. I don't feel very safe here. Knight at f6 check. So take here, queen takes, bishop takes. Isn't that okay? Or does he have some pawn at g7 at the end? Can also play king d8 now. Let's try and calculate a bit better. Take queen takes, bishop takes, pawn at g7, rook e8, knight takes, pawn at h3. Is it a strong enough attack? Well, we're going to find out. Yeah, I didn't feel so safe after king d8 either, because he's just going to play something like bishop at e5 and keep attacking the queen. Pawn at d7, or just chop that immediately. He does have some queen at f6 check. So it would be sensible to play a defensive move for once in my life. Pawn at e7. Ideas of knight at d4 coming. He has a lot of bishops to defend. I think objectively white's just much better, even though the material is dead equal. It's a good move. Bishop at d4. g4, I mean. Yeah, rook e8. So he's just... oh, what does that do? Just paving the way for promotion. So now I want to take this and start attacking, because he doesn't seem to have any direct threats. Even if he promotes, check here, pawn at... what about a long distance bishop drop? Bishop at e4. At least make him think how to defend. Threats of knight at e2 check. Yeah, this guy can be a very tricky player with little time on the clock, because he also likes to make me think when I got no time. I think bishop takes is safest. And he's going to have to cover up somehow. Either I'm sure there were better ways for white to attack a bit earlier. I'm just going to go for it because I think it's necessary. Pawn takes. Could we start with... Oh no, I should be starting with knight e2 because I'm going to save the other knight for f4. And perhaps some queen at d4 in the end. I didn't see a... Yeah, well, queen at d4 should be enough after the king's drawn out to f4. So a bit like A. Dale's mate from before with queen at h5. Same sort of theme, just cut the king off before dropping the pawn with check. So good games. Can't say his name. Salukio or something. I do like to Salukio Santesis. I do like to make some attempt to say my opponent's names. Give them some sort of respect during the stream, but no, I think he had quite good chances when the king was on d8. Wildcat. So I think my last two opponents have played much better than their ratings. We'll see how Wildcat goes. And of course, playing Ultra Berserk or Hyper Berserk or whatever, I'm not streaming at the same time, so I can at least try to focus on the games a bit better than what I'm doing at the moment. Objectively, is it best to play bishop c4 or bishop e2? I go bishop c4 with the idea of sacking the queen after knight. Okay. Knight f6, bishop takes, and knight at g5. You get some of these ideas during e4, e5 positions as well. This was not so good, but perhaps I have a bishop takes e6 after bishop d4. I just noticed that accidentally. And even here, it's a bit speculative. Not sure whether it actually works. F takes. Pawn at f7. Grab the knight, but the king is coming over this way. If he goes that way straight away, I can also promote to f8. Now there's an option to drop something on g7. Let's try and work out the most accurate move. Don't know. Sack the bishop if in doubt. Yes, it's not all that convincing though. Drop the bishop on from a distance. Just a bit worried about the queen being attacked by some knight drop on e5 or h4. Bishop at d5 to pick off the pawn, but then I feel like I'm just going in the wrong direction. Oh, bishop g5. Go bishop g5 to make some use of the bishop that's already on the board. And perhaps just back off the queen. So I really don't think sacking the queen is going to work this time. Knight at e5, queen takes. There's also options to build up on the light squares with pawn at f5. Or if he takes with the bishop, now there's a knight at g5 check coming. So I think, yeah, one of the knight drops was critical earlier. Although I wouldn't say I'm necessarily winning this position. It's exciting though, that's what it's all about. It's fun to get into positions where you sacked a lot of pieces and you're under pressure to find something critical. But surely king e7 was better because I didn't see a direct mate after queen takes, bishop takes. Or maybe knight d5 was the way to go after that. And then so knight takes, probably drop the pawn first, because then there could be some queen takes tricks. Nah, or just knight takes. Yeah, I didn't have any smothered knights in hand, but should be okay. Knight at c8 is also an option, so it's clear cast. Yeah, distract the rook away from whatever key square it was guarding. Was it f7? So I feel like it was a bit of a speculative sack in the opening. Maybe there's some better defensive resources for black there. So in this arena we have about 20 minutes to go. And I still need to find a little sponge because I'm a bit disturbed when I look down and I see a coffee stain building on my table. Dale says, gonna have to fix my sleep schedule. Yeah, the thing is that I really only stream at this time because we'll do the same thing again, because that's when all the Crazy House players are online at this time. All the tournaments are at this time. So yeah, so if I start when I get home at 6 p.m, there'll be hardly anyone online because it's late evening European time, and yeah, maybe there'll be a few US Canada players still online but just about to go to bed, and it's late evening. So I had the same problem playing Bughouse on Fix, that yeah, there's just no one online at 6 p.m, 7 p.m. Aussie time. I mean, yeah, very early European time and very late evening US Canada time. I think that's what I mean. So Queen E1. What do we do here? It's either pull the knight back to E4 or pawn at E4. Let's try pawn at E4, Queen C3, E takes F3, G takes F3. But two knights in that case are even less effective than they were before. So I'd rather just pull the knight back to E4, let him take, sack the pawn, put the bishop back on E4, and then we'll look for something after that. He's not interested, he's not buying it. So in this case, pawn at E7. Or Queen D7. I'll go Queen D7. Oh, yeah, you can take a knight at C5, but then maybe able to sack the queen, catch a Dale. I'm a Dale. However you say it quickly. Bishop A3. Knight at F5 would be the typical response here. Just defending some of the dark squares. Hinting at pawn at G4. Usually around 11 a.m. European, which is, yeah, that's 9 p.m. Sydney time. You should be able to find some strong opponents. Bishop takes, pawn takes. We'll see if he... Alright, so here, bishop at d5, queen g4 is the main concern, because then I do have to watch out for queen takes g7 in many cases. Or is it better to grab this way, take, knight takes? Or, no, queen takes is too risky. Try and do this in the most accurate way possible. I like bishop at d5, because at the moment I have the knight covering g7, even though in many cases I want to take on h4, but we'll see where this goes. So perhaps just take here, knight c takes d4. So if he has a knight in hand, one concern is a queen sack and then a knight at f6 check. I'm just trying to understand what's going on, because don't I have the knight and queen covering e7? I don't see how this is working for him. Oh, he's got bishop takes, pawn at bishop takes, knight takes. I'm still holding on e7. And the counter attack is going to be fierce with bishop takes f3. So the key defenders here are the knight and the queen. Otherwise he'd be crashing through on e7. Ah, that's a good move. He takes f6 because now he has some serious threats on e7. And I don't have any way to pull this bishop out of the way, so what does that mean? Let's have a think. Wow. Not sure whether I have a good response. I feel like I have to pull the queen out of the way somewhere, but queen d6, bishop takes, pawn takes, and then run the king to c7 is an option. I don't see any way to attack. Wow, incredible move. Pawn at b4 just doesn't work because of bishop takes and pawn at e7. Queen e6, but then pawn at draw the king to d7, then go knight takes queen. So whatever my first option was, what was that? No, I've forgotten. Queen d6. Yeah, I don't see anything better. There's also pawn at e7 first, and then could even promote to e8. Yuck. So I must have done something wrong. Maybe I just didn't respect this sack with knight at f6 and knight at g7. Should have found a way to fortify the squares. So what does that mean? Bishop takes bishop at d5 was just wrong. Yeah, hard to see that coming in advance. Alright, see if we can survive. Because if I get one move, then bishop takes f3 is going to be hard to meet. But is he just crushing me with queen, take, and then I have to spend a move defending c7? Pawn at, what is this? I'm going to go king. Oh no, there's knight here. So I don't quite understand what's going on. Why pawn at e6? What is he playing at? Yeah, I didn't like king c7 because of making a knight. Am I getting mated? e8. Takes. Okay, so now can I go knight takes e7, queen? No, I have to defend this square here. Whoa. So what about bishop at? Pawn takes, rook takes. I don't like that so much. Wow. Okay, we'll take a risk. King c7. Probably getting mated. So knight takes, bishop takes. Is he going to go this way and then make a queen, or just e8 equals knight? Ouch. I feel the pain. Whew. Yeah, I got to go up to b6. Or hopefully he'll play queen at c7. That might not be the best move. What about bishop d8? Knight takes queen at... So he really wants to keep this square for his fake knight. I don't get to say that word every day, huh? Fake knight. Yeah, rook b1 check. Whew. I don't quite understand the point of this move. I just saw that was possible. Oof. Knight c7, king a5 is probably mating me. Which piece do I need to block with a knight to cover b4 perhaps? What? Do I just have to go for it? I'm not surviving, surely. Or maybe something like bishop at e2. work it out. 17 seconds. Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, he's got me. Ha 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 ha! What? Surely he could just come back this way somehow. Hang on, I was not expecting to get a mate there. Or just king g6, bishop at king h5. Oh no, pawn at g6 is made. What? So really forced mate after king f6. But yeah, just take this and run away on the light squares, because I didn't have bishop at g4. Oh, that was an easy getaway. King takes f4. All right, that is ridiculous. I'm thinking after knight takes d6, I should have tried some bishop at e2 tricky move. Even then, probably he could just drop the pawn, bishop takes, knight takes, and I still don't have anything. Because I need to actually take a second knight to have a real attack. Yeah, I didn't even pre-move bishop at f6, because he had other options which way to move the king. So it's a trap if you're trying to flag your opponent, though. I mean, you should actually play good moves and make sure you're getting away for real. What a swindle. Alright, turn on. Expecting some of these knight f6 lines. But yeah, the majority of the game was very well played by Damate. Unfortunately, with regards to the scoreline, it's not always the player who makes the majority of good moves who comes out the winner. Crazy House is a very cruel game, just like chess. In chess, sometimes you can... what am I doing here? I've already forgotten. Castle? Bishop d2? Yeah. When you play classical chess, you can slave away for 4 or 5 hours and then one slip and it's all gone. You just throw it away. I'm very good at doing that. Right, the planes have started. Actually, they start at 6 AM in Sydney. We had this before, didn't we? I know knight takes d2 is possible, but I still believe in queen takes d2. Okay, throws in a bishop at c1 here. Alright, so without bishop at c1, I think I will almost always throw in this move to weaken the dark squares. Especially with queen takes, it's extra useful to just cut down the pawn on g7. Trying to squeeze the extra drop of coffee now that I wasted some. So 6 minutes left. I have not checked the standings. Let's do that now that we've got a moment. Banana Joe. And Tornon and Alex the Fat. I don't know this player. 2135 from Russia, 2300 Blitz. So he went bishop at f6. I mean, at some point I probably should be trading this knight on c6. Otherwise the bishop's just hanging over here. But what's the right move? Or do we go knight at g4, take here first? I don't like the way that this trade invites a bishop at c3. So I'm going to trade here first just to weaken the bishop a little. And knight at c3 perhaps? Yeah, knight at c3. So I wonder if he's going to sack the queen OK style. Okay, was the first player to do this type of idea against me. Queen takes f3 and chuck a knight over on g2. No, doesn't want to. He's trying hard to fortify the dark squares h6, so maybe I should be attacking here. d5. Take, knight takes. Yeah, of course I don't mind a trade here, because then it just means more pieces are hanging. But in 5-0 I'm probably not going to get in another game after this one. Yeah, so if black has time, he'd like to play moves like pawn on h3 and weaken the knight on f3. If the rook wasn't hanging, then maybe bishop takes a knight at e4, but I seem to have a lot of the knight drops covered at the moment. Rook g8 is always a useful move if you don't want to castle. Castling does look a bit scary here. Let's take. Choose a piece to put on e7, probably the pawn in this position. Leaving a bishop and knight in hand. Also just take with the pawn. So he's having a long think. Joanna says she beat a 1900. It's always a nice feeling. What are you, 16 something, 17 something? Pawn at d7, going for ultra passivity. Often a good approach against Mugwort, because I'll try and crack through it too early. But bishop c6 does look good. Knight at f4 would be the other choice. Let's just go in because there's a pawn at d7. I guess he's going to get away with castling. And do I take the material? Do I try and get in via the dark squares? No. Pawn at d4. So how about we respond with pawn at h, and then d takes c3, bishop takes d7, looks good. So this is the idea. So then hoping to push the king to f8, there'll be a check on g7. If king goes to e7, then I'm sure I'll think of something. Maybe something at d6 check. There's also the queen sack. Let's have a quick look. Take, but oh, hang on. There is a knight at c6 at the end. And king f8. I don't have any more knights, so I have to take here. Take. Probably not enough. I'll just go bishop takes d7 check. King e7. There's either something at d6 or knight at c6. Yeah, I like knight at c6 better. Because then I have options like queen f4 check to preserve the queen. Queen d4 check. Is this a mate somewhere? Bishop at e5 check. It's all possible. No, let's go with this one. The idea is queen takes and then we'll go pawn at g5. Oh, it's check. Oops. That is always useful to notice. But I think it should be okay. He's run out of checks and then there'll be something good next, like knight g4, knight e4 coming, pawn at g5 coming, knight takes d7 perhaps. Thanks, who's that brave hedgehog? Welcome. So I don't always recognize the Aussies in the chat. I know there are a few earlier. So yeah, just like me, on a Friday evening, ClickCast is wiped out after work. I was just totally exhausted yesterday because burning the candle at both ends, trying to stay up late during the week and get up early. So he's covering a lot of the drop checks. So here, I like pawn at g5 just to try and get this move in with a tempo. Knight back to f3. And then we'll think about taking the bishop or some more pawn checks. Or do we bring this knight to f3? Yeah, let's try and keep this knight on the board. Hopefully there'll be some knight takes f7 check. Yeah, like now. That's what I mean. That's what I was intending all along. I just confused myself. So bring this knight back because then that leaves a square on f7. See ya, Jojo. Bishop at b4, knight at pawn at d2. Looks most solid. He can sack here, but then take back with the knight. So there's no promotion. He's trying to guard the square f7. All right, 2 queens in hand. There's got to be something. Let's just make him think with a lot of drops possible. Knight f4 also, perhaps. Queen at g5 should finish. And do we get another game in? No, that's it. End of the arena. Oh, I didn't count. Otherwise, I would have jumped ahead. So, Alex the Fat from Russia, Banana Joe. Does anyone know where Banana Joe is from? Germany, is it? Possibly Germany, but that's only a guess. Alright, what do we do here? There's no other arenas, so Lichess has changed the arena format of Crazy House and other variants so that they're only once every 2 hours. So I know to check on the even hours in Australia, so that means 8 AM, 10 AM, 12 PM and so on. And it is 8:30 AM, and I'm not sure if there are any arenas at the moment. But let's have a quick look. Probably not, since the daily just finished. And the next one is not going to be till 10 AM. Sydney time, it is now 8:30. So, what do we do? Tell me if you have a good idea. Because I have a little bit of time. I just need a second to wipe up the coffee spill and then I'll be ready. So perhaps we should come back home and... what shall we do? Create a game. If it's gonna be bullet, it's got to be casual because when I'm talking and reading chat, I often find myself with just like 10 seconds left. So casual bullet. If you want to challenge me to slower, that's fine. If you're like 1600, just make it casual. If you want to play a more serious game, I guess 3+2 or 3+0 rated at the fastest. So, hang on. How does this rating range work? Does anybody know? It says -500. Can I not open it up to anyone if it's casual? Does anyone know how it works? Can you make it unlimited if it's casual, or is it automatically unlimited if it's casual? I don't know. Or am I limited to between 2,000 and 3,000 in a rated or casual game? That's the rating range only, but for a casual game, is it unlimited, or can anyone accept if it's a casual game? For me, it gives the actual rating so I can go down to 0. What does that mean? I just saw -500 to +500. Anyone can accept. Alright, Nuba wants to play some casual Crazy House, so it's a little less serious. Not that it was very serious anyway on the stream, it very rarely is. But anyway, we can just have a bit more fun and throw the pieces around and do some crazy sacks without having to think too much. Knight takes f7 is the most obvious sack here. Drop the pawn h6 because it usually makes the opponent think how to defend, whether to defend the dark or light squares. Pawn at e5 I don't like so much because he's going to sack here and then queen trade maybe not so favorable. Ah, it shows up as 0 to 2900. That's interesting. Take here first or trade the bishop. They changed it. It used to be that way, but I thought they changed it recently. Bishop at g5? I don't mind a queen trade here. Taking queen at e7. Queen at... Now there's no bishop for h5, so I guess we'll just... Oh, hang on. I could trap the queen with pawn at h5, couldn't I? So where's he going to sack h6? Knight takes. Take that one too. And... Where does the knight belong? Where does the knight belong? We'll go bishop c4 and then sack on e6. Bishop at f5. Does that work? Queen f3. I suppose there's a bishop at g4 he wants to do. Take here first. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Queen e3, check. I'll drop that pre-move. Take that. Ah. Rook at... Oops. Ah, flag. Ah, the wolf is challenging me. Let's just play one more. Knight f5 usually works out okay in the French. Bishop at h5, trade here and take on d4 is the main idea. He's gone f3 to defend. Bishop e6. Expecting knight at f4, drop the bishop back. Bishop probably just back to e7 and then castles. Bishop g5. Yeah, let's see if his attack works. Only a pawn in hand. Could perhaps think about h6 to defend. Or knight at c4. Now he's gone queen d2. Wow, look at this. He's not going to get a knight in hand, but he does have a queen for g7. And that's a bit scary. Ah, probably busted. Yeah, if I have to play bishop at h6. Ah. Wow, this is resign time, isn't it? Oh yeah, bishop g7 I was expecting. Yeah. That's it. Alright, I'll have to win one or two before I switch. So nice move. What was that? Knight takes e6. Trading off the right pieces. If I take the knight, there was some bishop takes g5 and then I can't take the queen and allow knight at h6. Make him sack a piece, just trade it back. Knight d5. And then start thinking how to avoid queen takes g2. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Don't have any better ideas. Queen takes e4 as well. I need some more trades. He has a check here coming. Very desperate with all these piece sacks. Or does it depend on the actual rating of, the highest rating on the server? I don't know, at the time. So meaning if there's somebody who's actually 3,000, then does it go up to 3,000 in that case? Yes, bishop takes c3. Silly flag. e4. What did we do last time? Try and improve on the French. So taking on f5 early. I don't know about bishop. Seems to just invite knight at f4, doesn't it? We just play a waiting move and see where the knight lands first. Yeah, try a bit more solid this time with bishop at g6, so I don't have to rush into castling. Perhaps just play queen d7 and keep the king in the center. Now that I know what his basic strategy is to take advantage of this slightly weak square on f6. Knight at h5. Yeah. Something's going to happen anyway on g7 and f6. Take pawn at f6. Do we sack the bishop or drop back with the rook? Yeah, I'll come back with the rook. Looks a tad safer because maybe able to tuck this queen out somewhere and keep it safe on, let's say, a6. Oh, whoops. Should have gone queen d7. That was a major error. Okay. 6 seconds. Bad pre-move. What? Yeah, so in 1-0 streaming, I'm probably a little more than, I don't know, 2,000 strength. See if we can focus a bit better. Did this last time. I really don't believe in what black is doing. H4. Yeah, but it's just, see, when I started playing Bughouse, what, 25 years ago or whatever, I used to play a little bit of Blitz. 3-0 was the fastest I went. I never had the playing experience of 1-0. Always just absolutely hated 1-0 and tried to avoid it wherever possible, unless, it was the only way I could get a game. So I often just don't have an instinctive feeling of what to do in 1 second. It takes me a little bit of time to see what's going on the board. Don't like this, but I'm waiting for a knight for h6, so I want to get rid of the bishop. And I don't mind if he trades on c3. The thing is, if I work my way into a good position, then I find that I've just got no time left to finish. And obviously if I blunder in the opening and drop pieces, then okay, I can flag my opponent, but it's just not the style I want to encourage myself to practice. See, there you go. It's very typical. What happens in 1-0. And I'm also not sure. I mean, I probably should just be pre-moving something when I'm down to 3 seconds. And yeah, so like pre-move this, and if he checks me, then play rook takes d1. And I guess the best bullet players would try to do both at the same time and just hover the rook over d1 and then pre-move something else. No think, only play. All right. But then, see, it takes me time to see tactics like knight takes d4 and see if it works. And I see, oh, he's got the knight on c3 defending e3, e2, so it doesn't work. It just takes me a couple of seconds to see this. I think it's okay to trade here. I've already got g7 covered. Oh, I should have... Oh, no. Defend this first and then think about taking on d4. And some players are good at talking and playing at the same time. I think that is a skill in itself. I think rook g8's okay-ish. And then, yeah, now he's got d4 covered. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm stuck for an idea. So now's where you just make random moves, isn't it? Bishop h4, maybe? I just don't think it's very good training to get down to 10 seconds and you find yourself just making random moves without any purpose. Yeah, and I think enough of those games where he's just making meaningless moves. Don't drop, says Juicebolt. What do you mean, don't drop? Move the pieces on the board and don't drop. What's wrong with drops? Knight b5 we could try. In a scramble, it's faster to move pieces and not drop. But aren't drops trickier for when you do checks, for example? It's faster with dropping the pieces on the board. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was faster to drop as well. Maybe grab the bishop. The knight's not doing much else on b5. Yeah, I had a question earlier. Do strong players drop with the keyboard? And it would take a lot of practice to drop with the keyboard. I'm just stumbling to make legal moves at the moment. It's hard enough in itself, just making legal moves. Pawn at e7, I don't really see what I'm doing. Queen h5 is too many ways to defend. I want some sort of drop on the back row. See, that's an easy fight. It takes me 4 seconds to just play bishop d2. Well, at least Nuba's improving his score against me. But good training for... So I lose a lot of games if you are really meticulous at going through the... I might try Rook G8. I don't know if it's any good. If the CWC videos that I made with the commentary. And if you go through these carefully, you'll notice that there were many games decided in a 2-second time scramble at the end. Bishop b4 here. So I guess in a way it's good practice. Just playing a bit faster at the end and not getting flagged every single game. So knight at f6 check coming. We should just throw out the bishop here on... There's also knight takes d4 and bishop takes c3 there. Shall we do it here? A takes b4. No, I don't see that it's working very well. 10 seconds again. Yeah, this is getting a bit fruitless, really. There is currently not a lot of point continuing. So yeah, I saw a mate in 3. He should have gone to h1. But yeah, just no time to play. Alright, what's Juice Bold offering? 2 plus 5? Let's... yeah. There we go. 2 plus 5. GG's Nuba. Too fast for me at the end. I really don't find it fun, although training is often painful. But yeah, I just find it a bit pointless. Let's try... who's been playing this against me lately? The finisher sometimes throws in knight c6 and d5. No worries, Nuba. I'm never been a bullet player, and sadly, I think I never will be. Even if I played 1,000 games, it's like doing Puzzle Storm. If I tried to do it a million times, I just don't think I'd actually get any faster. I just hit a wall, and then you probably need to start that sort of training when you're very young to be any good. So take here first, or move the queen around somewhere. Queen h5, queen d8. We'll take here. 1,000 games of bullet is a casual player. What does that mean? Knight f6, bit concerned about pawn at h6 coming. So we go knight at e4. Means not enough, yeah. So what's the time control here? 2 plus 5. Yeah, I mean the increment is really something that I got used to playing 3 plus 2. And it means if I have a winning position at the end, at least I have a chance to finish it off. But the wolf often gets a good opening against me, and then he's looking for force mates when the king's running around, and he sometimes doesn't find the perfect moves. But I guess we have a very similar style. We try to take our time and find the absolute optimal moves. in complex positions. So bishop e2. What's the intention on pawn at g4? Just to castle. Pawn takes, bishop takes. Could take on d2, but then he's getting bishops. Oh no, he doesn't have bishops. I'm getting the bishops for knight at h4. There's also pawn at h4, h3. But then I don't have a knight for g2. Is it better to drop the pawn here? And then what happens on knight? You can't move the knight. So yeah, let's just go for the material and take on f3, take on d2, stick the knight back on h4. And try and keep these pawns here to make the bishop not so effective. Castle g takes is pretty much forced, I think. And again, I don't see anything better than trading and trying to go for the bishop on f3. Any better ideas? Could try knight at h4 immediately. But no, I'm going to take here first. And knight at h4. So I think trades generally favor black, except, yeah, if he has bishop for g4, that's a bit of a worry. So where does the bishop belong? I'm thinking maybe f4 or h6. I'm not sure about this. Bishop at f4, pawn at e3. I think I'm going in the wrong direction if I sack on e2. Try and make him waste time, but yeah, bishop back to e2 is a good defense. So queen trade, interesting. I'd rather trade the queens than get hunted down by a pawn or a knight. But then, yeah, so here we're running out of pieces. And I don't see anything convincing trading here, so just knight f6, might run into pawn at e5. So we'll start with bishop d7. Knight at b5, rook c8. Pawn at d6. Hmm. 20 seconds. I kind of don't like trading here, giving him more pieces. So perhaps bishop at f4, let him take on c7 if he wants to, and then end up taking back with the bishop on c7. Yeah, pawn at g. So I should trade here first, and then bishop d6. And need a bit of time to break through this. So bishop at f8, bishop at h6. Yeah, I'm gonna go ultra passive and try and keep the extra material. So what am I up a knight at the moment? So there's gonna be no breakthroughs on the king side, so it's a slow game. Bishop at f4. Maybe just trying for the obvious move. So I should probably defend d6. Knight at f5. There could be some g4. Knight h4, take Take on f3. It's probably okay. So I'm inviting him to push g4 if he wants to do that. And then I don't know which way is he going. I wasn't really afraid of this one because there's no immediate danger for the king. Only if he takes on c6, but notice that is not check. And if the wolf is listening, I mean, perhaps talking is not really going to help him all that much, because then my ideas conflict with his ideas and what I say may not always be accurate. Queen at h3. So knight g6 then. He might want to go bishop takes, knight takes, king somewhere, but then should I just trade? Just trade for the bishop and then work out how to defend, or if I need to defend. Bishop at d5. Just thought for a second he had a bishop for f4, but it is only a knight, which is much better for me. So yeah, there's some idea to sack one of these two pieces, but white doesn't have a lot of material in the bank to work with. And now that he's committed to dropping the queen on the board, I could throw in a check, but I might as well just take the queen. So 2 queens in hand. Still not yet a mate. And I kind of like the look of king f8 here. I'm not sure it's the best move. King d8 allowing bishop takes. And there's c7 to worry about as well. So the knight covers a couple of the squares here. He does have bishop at f8, but I think there should be enough resources to defend the dark squares in that case. So your knight would be really useful for h5, but he's not going to get one in a hurry. So bishop at h4 is an attempt to defend smothered mate themes on f2. Okay, so let's try to work this out carefully. Could start knight at f3 check, but I think in that case he can take, because I need an extra knight to mate. I really like to make him drop one of these bishops, because I'm a little bit worried about pawn at f6 now. But I'm going to take a risk and go for the attack. Not that I'm actually threatening anything in a hurry, but yeah, so he's getting a knight, but I was more hoping to defend on the light squares with king g6. Rook g1. Let's try queen at h5 and then get rid of this bishop. Yeah, let's see. This wasn't so accurate from me. Queen at f3, pawn at g2. Queen takes h4, doesn't get anywhere, so I have to get rid of the bishop first. But then he's defending. Queen h4, knight at f5, king g5. I think it's holding for the moment. If ever he takes this, then he's not getting the check. Bishop at g3? Bishop, yeah. Uh-oh. Eight seconds. We'll have to come back. Ah. Alright, now I can grab this knight at least. Or do I have to go for the... How much increment is there? How come I got 40 seconds? Did I make so many moves in a hurry? I thought I had like 5 seconds left. Yeah, so if bishop takes d5, then he had at least winning the queen. Oh, he's giving me time. I haven't noticed. Thanks, Wolf. But I think now there's no knight f4, the queen is safe on. Alright, so now we got to go for the sack, surely. And I can take on f3, or unless queen at h3 is mating. Yeah, it is mating. So rook at h1, pawn at g2, knight at... or just knight at e2. Ah, he's... okay, so... he's saying I don't get time. I didn't even notice that he was giving me time. If you're going to play Rated Wolf, if you want time, just challenge me to casual instead, because it's either one or the other. We're not going to do both. So if you want to play, give each other time and make it like you forget about the time, just challenge me to casual. So I'll let you decide, because you're the one that's challenging me. So if I don't hear anything, then we're going to stop playing, because you need to make a decision, Wolf. If it's a rated game, then don't give me any extra time, because I don't ask for it. If it's a casual game, then we can do whatever and give each other time. I just didn't notice you giving me more time. I thought I must have made a few moves in a row. Yeah, but my windows are laid out because I've only got one monitor. So reading the chat is quite awkward for me at the moment, the game chat, I mean. So read it, okay? All right, let's do it. Yeah, so, I mean, with increment already, it's up to me to manage my own time. And if I get flags, so be it. But yeah, I think this is good practice in managing your time with increment and in the last second, because I often have an idea what to do, even though I might seem kind of stuck for a move. I often have a last second resort, which is quite useful when you have increment. So knight f6. What do we do here? Bishop g5, or is that bishop b5, I mean. Now in that case, can he get away with grabbing on b2? Probably can, so what do I play? a3 here. Oh, I don't know. Let's try a3 and knight b5. Yeah, I mean, in Reddit games, I've always got takebacks turned off, because I just saw too many situations where people had like 10 seconds left and they're asking for takebacks, and I just don't even want to be in that situation. Sometimes even in the CWC, people are asking for takebacks, so I just don't think it's appropriate when you're low on time to ask for a takeback, so I just rather turn takebacks off altogether. So I don't think I've ever asked for a takeback in my whole life, even in a casual game. But yeah, a casual game, we can do whatever. It's really up to the players to challenge me to whatever they want. I mean, I'm happy to do whatever, but with certain conditions. So Wolf is thinking, I mean, what are the options? If it's not queen takes b2, is it... Where's he going back to d6, a5? Not sure if there are any viable options. Alright, so now surely, if there's no pawn at a3 or queen takes b2 to worry about, surely bishop b5 makes some sense. I kind of want to kick this knight around with something like pawn at e5. And some players will wait for me to take it and then go e takes f6. But g takes f6 is often less effective. So he's stopping the pawn at d5 ideas, but then... Yeah, so it's either pawn at e5 or... I'll just castle here now. He's blocked out this diagonal and there's no pawn at h3 to worry about. In some positions I look for moves like b4. Especially with the rook defended, or sometimes even it works without the rook defended. Yeah, so b4, what happens? Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, the knight is hanging at the end. I have a bishop in hand, but then there's no good follow-ups with the knight here, so maybe keep b4 for later and try something else. What else? We'll go for pawn at e5. I'm expecting knight g4 and then find a way to defend the pawn on e5. So, unless I can play something or I don't have to defend the pawn on g5. Running short on time as well. Throw in b4. I mean, I don't really want to trade here. Unless there's some knight at c4 in the end, which works. It does help to protect the pawn. If I put a knight on c4 at the end. Actually, what am I talking about? I just got confused for a second. Yeah, so what about... I don't really like this now. I'm running out of time. I know it looks like I'm going to flag, but at least if I know I have the 5-second increment, I'll just make a move in the end, even if it may not be the optimal move. Yeah, and then rook b1. Don't really know if there's much purpose to this move. Pawn at b2, h3. Guess he's going to trade on f3 and then probably should be taking back with the pawn, although it's a little bit of a concern to weaken the g3 square. Should I defend this way? It's a bit hard for him to defend the square, so I'm going to take with the king, and then at least keeps the g3 square covered for the moment. So main idea is to weaken the f6 and g7. I don't particularly want a queen trade, so I'm going to go this way, allow bishop takes b5, and then just throw everything into the attack. Because I see the knights are covering a lot of the squares. So even a move like g3 might be okay. Alright, king's going for a wander. Let's see if the wolf's got enough to attack. Bishop at f1, so I don't need to give him the queen, although even that might not be too bad. King h1 or king h2, king g1 or king h2. They both seemed okay. So is the bishop here just going to get in the way? What pieces does he need to mate? This is the sort of thing we need to be looking at. Rook at g3 is certainly going to help build up an attack and also defend some key squares. I can pick off the bishop here at any time. Yeah, now's as good a time as any, unless I have something better like bishop at c5, and then, of course, this opens up the smothered mate on e7. He's at risk of suffocation, mate, so this defends. And I need to block out this bishop, so how do we do that? Just ignore and... Oh, there is some pawn at f2, but I think I can just take here. Yep. Maybe king h1 was better. Knight at h2, take. Yeah, the knight is going to be trapped on h2 in that case, because the rook can't be placed to defend the knight on h2. Alright, good move. So rook f3. Yeah, just drop a bishop on for safety. So I can't allow him to take any heavy piece. And there may be some chance to throw a knight at f6 later. Maybe now's not the best time. Alright, so now he's got to watch out for rook takes f5. Take with the pawn, I think, is more accurate. So main threat, rook takes f5 and knight at e7. Also just pawn at g7 is the threat. So this is getting a bit too hard to defend, I think. Unless there's some sneaky pawn at g2, bishop takes e4. Just work it out. Knight at e1 check. Is he running out? I think he's running out of checks. King f1, no more checks. Yeah, so the point is he can't take the queen with a check. Yeah, so knight at e1, king f1. Alright, what did we do last time? So we've had a couple of games with a Nimzovich defense, knight c6. So shall we switch it up? I'll see what the wolf's got against e5. It's the old Katask line. I don't think it's meant to be all that great for black, but it's very tricky. I'm not used to the smooth pawn at g2. So probably just go bishop b4 or d5, sack a pawn. Probably bishop b4 here. And bishop g5, I've got to consider pawn at a3. So bishop takes knight, a takes b2. Some move to protect the knight on c3. Knight at d5, does that work, or can I sack a queen? There's also the rook hanging, so it looks good. Pawn at a3. I wish a coffee machine was right next to me. Actually, I wish I had a coffee machine. I can only make Insta-coffee at the moment. So when you get up at 6:30 in the morning, I'm used to having a bit more than one. Queen d4, yes, another alternative. Not sure if he wants to throw in the sneaky check. A takes b2. Should we just do it without thinking? And check. There are some options to play queen e7. He's building up an attack on f6 as well as my knight hanging on h4. So the next move is not going to be so obvious. So I could tell you what I don't want to do. I don't want to put a pawn on c5 because then check and there's nothing good to block on e7. Taking on c3, yeah, but then where's the knight follow-up? Always looking out for moves like pawn at d2 check, because then if the queen has to come back, surely that's to my advantage, even though, I mean, I'm not saying black is better in that case, it's just slowing down his attack. But otherwise, not really a lot going on in this position. So I don't have a lot to work with. What do you do in desperation out of the opening? Could pull the knight back to g6. It's not really what I want to do after the trade. So not a lot of option. And then I think I just have to hold on desperately to the material because I don't see anything better. Knight at f5. Rook g8 is pretty much forced. Bishop takes, and would like to take back with the queen, but it's not happening. So yeah, I think I'm just busted here. Bishop at h6, king g8, knight back out of the way. Any immediate threats, or can I try and get away with defending with something like knight at e6? So it looks like there are 2 key squares to cover, or even three key squares to cover. It's just too hard to trade off these pieces here. Yeah, and he can easily trade off mine. Bishop at, just in desperation, because I don't see anything better. Yeah, I mean, pawn at g7 even isn't going to work because he's just going to take a few times and replace. It's very difficult to defend. Try not to give him any pieces, but it's mainly this one he wants to get into g7. So I probably just have to allow him to get into g7 and block out this queen. Just let him play rook at g7, hide in the corner. Hope he's got nothing after that. Alright, so good opening from Wolf. So let's see if he can convert. Rook takes g6, does it work? No, he's found something. Threat, bishop to g7. So let's put a bishop on and then make him think at least. And even bishop takes f5 is not going to work. So I don't know, am I busted? Huh. Yeah, interesting. I still can't play bishop takes rook. Yeah, I have to do something like pawn at g7 to survive. Yep. that might be about it. Bishop takes f5, only move. Takes. Pawn at king f7, only move. I mean, he's got to find the mate because I'm just making only moves. But yeah, if there's no counter attack, he can afford to do moves like this. I think this might be about the end. Play one more move. Yep. Yeah, I don't see any way to survive. I will flag. So, pretty difficult opening after pawn at g2. I have to look for something better than bishop g4, bishop b4, bishop g5, and pawn at a3. So he's going for the same gambit again. See if he... what happened last time? Did I play a3 and then he went back to a5? We'll see if he repeats or try something else. So this is more critical, it seems. Sacking a queen on b5. And then, I guess, putting some pawns around the 6th and 7th rank to survive. So I found it amazing in the Crazy House World Championship 2020 how many games went with the black pieces. In fact, my match versus the finisher, you could say that black won the match because black won 7 out of 10 games. It's quite incredible considering how much pressure black is under straight out of the opening, like you saw in the previous game. I didn't seem to make any terrible moves. Perhaps knight to e5, or just pawn at e5. Does he want to sack the knight as well? I'll see if he wants to sack the knight as well. One who, yeah, opposite saying incredible versus a player but like the finisher, one who makes you suffer in Crazy House, especially when he's got the white pieces. Yeah. Knight at c3. Didn't see this coming. So my first thought is a counter sack, because if bishop takes, pawn takes, yeah, I can move the queen, maybe do the wolf move like queen d4, but then it's moves like pawn at b2 I'm worried about, although perhaps queen takes c3, takes is not so bad. Other moves, I could play queen d3 straight away, but then pawn at b2, take. Perhaps this is even better, but then there's also this move to watch for, and then, you know, stuff like bishop at either c3 or a6. And there's also the queen sack, so ef6, knight d1, rook d1. Does he have any good queen checks to follow? Queen at c3, I don't think as much. Queen at a5. Queen at a5, queen at b4. Take, that's okay. Queen at c3, queen at d2. So let's go for the queen sack line. Yeah, ZH advantage to black confirmed. It says Blackbird 99. He's gone for the bishop, okay. And what happens on queen takes d5? I don't know, I guess we're gonna find out. Bishop at c3. Now obviously I would like to castle, but not so important here, I don't think. I'll just go king f1. And I'm gonna make him worry about calculating checkmates, so I'll leave the calculation to Wolf. I'll just try to play good moves. It doesn't look like I'm getting through on the dark square so easily, but but it's more the light squares I'm trying for. So if he defends, I probably should play a move like rook d1 just to... Yeah, he's saying in the game chat, maybe bishop c3, not so smart. Yeah, also with the window layout, because I only have one monitor, I have to put the board in an awkward position compared to the OBS and the chat. Alright, so we're going to work it out. Pawn at d7. Bishop takes, queen takes, king takes, rook d1. Some blocker probably on d4 to keep the bishop line open. And there's stuff like bishop at f5, queen at d5. I don't quite think it's enough. So question is, do I take on b5 or do I save the rook first? I think I'll save the rook first to make him think what to do with the knight on b5. So plugging up the D file is of course necessary. And now I think is a very good moment to play knight at b5 because there are tricks on the D file on both squares d7 and d8. Potential tricks. So how to defend. Yep. And now can we throw in an upper move? Pawn at b6. Can I say that's an upper move? Or is it too obvious? Maybe it's too obvious. A mugwort move. Pawn at b6. Yeah, I like it. Interference move. We got the bishop on e3 covering. And big threat of knight takes c7 check. So he's allowing this one. May as well grab it and take the bishop. Try and look for something more convincing than knight takes bishop. But I think it's an important piece to get rid of, so we'll do that. And then it's just a question of where to crash in, or we just go queen at c7 and then pawn at f7, queen d7. Yep, okay. How many games do we had? 4 games, so, oh well. Shall we say 2 more, Wolf? 2 more? Make it an even number, of course, in Crazy House. Oh, e3! Oh no. Alright. I did warn you. I did warn you. Fair warning. I did give fair warning. I have takebacks turned off. So, alright. We might see a whoop. Oh, he's aborted. Alright. I'll give you that one. But I'll take the one. Do you want to abort again? Do I get a bad score if you do the aborting? Isn't there some percentage of completed games where it goes down every time you abort? I'm not even sure what that's used for. Does anyone know? The percentage of completed games. So should we try again this wolf pawn at g2, because I really didn't find any good ideas. Or should we go for d5 instead? So go for e6 and bishop b5, bishop b4. So if you are a keen Crazy House aficionado, you will notice that I was talking about the OK line with queen takes d2 earlier and a takes b2, and then we get some crazy stuff happening after rook at c1 and a sack. Now, I have not really seen this move order before with knight takes c7 after knight takes d2, so it's all quite new to me. You got to watch out for stuff like bishop at e5 because that creates holes in both directions. So g7 f6 very sensitive in this line. Bishop at c1 I think has much less effect with the knight sitting on d2. And also there's no checks along here. There's a knight at c3, but it's very slow. And I really don't trust the move knight at c3 because I think he'll find a way to attack me faster. So what is the move? It's already, I would have to say, a critical position. Maybe some bishop at f4. But then knight at h5 could be painful. Bishop at d5, I don't like so much. How do we cover the square e5 and also h5 and g7? That's a bit too challenging, isn't it? Bishop at f6 perhaps, but then just pawn at e5. It's already very challenging to find the most accurate move. Play something weird to make me think, yeah, I'm going to go bishop at f4. I don't know about this move. Knight at h5, obvious response. And now it's either castles, let him sack, but it's more pawn at f6 I'm concerned about, so I'll just do the obvious move, rook g8 instead. Pawn at f6. So sometimes you can get away with allowing knight takes a g7 check. And what about I just do the same? I got to get some attack going. I mean, again, there's knight at c3. I just think it's a bit too slow. Try and draw the queen out so this bishop takes d2 for him to think about. He can pick up a knight at any time, but then he's giving me a few more escape squares for my king if queen takes. So knight takes g7. I mean, rook takes you would only ever consider if you have a forced mate after knight takes g2, but I really don't trust it with just a knight in hand, so it's more king d8 or king d7 I was looking at. So he's defending with the bishop. Looks like a good move. So maybe g6 to preserve the pawn, or pawn at f5. g6, knight g7, king d7, but then there's this bishop takes, pawn takes, knight at c5. Does look a bit scary. There's crazy line with pawn at d5. Okay, wasn't expecting this one. I was expecting bishop takes first, allowing knight g2. And can I take with the pawn? No, because it allows knight at c5, and then I have to sack another knight here for a pawn. It may not be immediately fatal, I just don't trust it. So looking more at queen takes c6. Still got the bishop for the moment covering the knight fork on e5. You can still play knight at c5 if he wants, king c7. I have an extra bishop for the attack if anything manifests, although I have to say I don't really have much of an attack at the moment. I'm relying on this bishop to move out of the way. I'm waiting for the right time to throw in bishop takes d2. I think I have to collect a couple more pieces first. Alright. So now take. Or throw in queen a5 first. And maybe even king takes c6. That would be bold. Yeah, let's do it. King takes c6. So maybe knight at e5 check just to draw the bishop away. Okay. So now let's get rid of that piece and come back to c7, I suppose. Not sure whether to throw in knight at c3. I don't trust that either. Pawn at d6. Oh, he's got another pawn in hand. Uh-oh. Surely white is better here. Whether he can find a forced mate is another question. His king is certainly a lot safer than mine. That's the main feature here. Rook takes b2. Wow, don't know what's going on here. I'm going to try a bishop at a3 to cover up some squares. What is this? Come back. Throw in a knight check so he doesn't take on... that was terrible. What am I doing? Yeah, that was really silly. I think I just gave up a piece unnecessarily. Yeah, now I'm forced to go this way because of pawn at bishop at d6. I missed that too. Oh man, missing everything. And now, yeah, it's toast. Well, I do have bishop takes c7. But the problem is there's no attack. c4. Yeah, open up the queen. Come on, Wolf. Finish the game. I think this is going to be the last one. Well, yeah, it was kind of interesting. And I think when I realized I didn't really have a chance to attack, I should have played a bit more carefully. Maybe it was just too late. I'm going to play something different. Bishop b5. So just inviting him to take another pawn on b2. So it's a totally different system. Yeah, black always has to watch out for threats on d7 especially. Pawn at a3, right. How do we meet this? It reminds me of my game against Crazy Ara. Did I take on c6 and then just go for the attack? I think I did. I can't remember if it worked out good or not, or whether... I mean, you wouldn't expect Crazy Ara to make many mistakes in the opening. But I think it was something like this, wasn't it? Anyway, I think Katask is quite familiar with this game. Yeah, so Wolf is playing like Crazy Ara at the moment. Can look it up later. So an early queen sack, and I think I should have been playing rook d1. I think I've already completely stuffed it up. And it's an opening, you don't get any second chances. Knight takes c6, what's happening here? Knight takes c6, a takes b2. It's too hard to defend everything. I needed to throw in rook d1 earlier, I think. Although... I just can't protect all my pieces. I suppose knight d3 is possible. Just have another look at knight takes c6, a takes, knight b4, a takes b1. Let's say bishop at c1. I'd rather go for that than pull the knight back to d3. Well, it's the same position, isn't it? If he goes a takes b2 and then just get the extra pawn. So the funny thing is, if Juicebolt is listening, then there's a few things that can happen when I'm calculating, and if he's listening, because if what I'm saying is right, then it could scare him into playing something different. If there's one little hole in the analysis, then if he believes me, then he's not going to play the optimal move and challenge my analysis. If he doesn't believe it, then maybe I am actually telling the truth. There's a lot of things. I mean, yeah, you know, stream sniping often does favor the player who's listening in, but yeah, Crazy House analysis is so difficult that what I say may not always be correct, and then it's up to the opponent to find a flaw. No, I mean, I don't even trust myself, Wolf. So I don't even trust my own analysis here. Position is too wild to calculate correctly. Because there's so many checks. I mean, how can you possibly calculate all the possible checks? Bishop at d5, pawn at d5, bishop somewhere on the other diagonal, and after the queen and rook trade. So he's gone for queen takes b2, which is probably a much better move than what we were talking about earlier. Do I have a good response? Yikes. Gonna go knight d4. I don't like the look of knight d4. There are problems whichever way I check, I think. f5, that was a surprise. Now knight d4 check. Try to move this other knight with check if I possibly can. Or is it pawn at g5? It's too messy to calculate. Knight d5 check. King e5, knight f3 I think is going to be necessary. And then at least we get a chance to castle. At least we can say we castled. Yep. As expected. I might as well throw in c4. At least here I have a chance not to get flagged, so that should be one of my aims. I got so many checks that I'm not going to get flagged. It's highly unlikely. So knight e5 check seems to be the obvious move. And how much material am I down? A queen for... Is it a queen for 3 pawns? And do I have to sack another piece on g4 to survive? Let's see. It does seem so. So let's just do it without too much thinking so I can build up my time to 10 seconds. 3 pawns, probably not enough to mate. You've done a good job blocking out this rook, so the rooks are pretty useless, just defending at the moment. I'm not attacking with much ammo. Bishop e6, do I want to trade for a knight? Bishop f3, do I want to possibly trade for a rook? e5, okay. Going to invite him to come further forwards. And rook c2, make him think whether to sack the queen or back off somewhere. Queen b3, knight c6, looks okay. How can you possibly analyze this position? It's just total madness. Queen d6. Okay, I really should be looking at dirty tricks Dirty tricks. Pawn check. Where's the knight going? Ah, no. Bishop f3. This is barely holding on. Knight takes a7 perhaps? Bishop takes... 2 pawns and a rook, even enough to mate here. Can't say for sure. Knight... Yep. I don't know. Just throw in pawn at c4. Takes. Rook check from a distance. And now I can take that one, I think, and at least go king h1. I'm not getting mated immediately. So I have f takes, so rook takes g3. Knight takes. Alright, so this is a dirty trick I was talking about before. We have knight at e4 check. Yeah, and then I'm gonna go pawn at f5. Here's another mugwort move, pawn at f5. Probably missing mate in 1 or something. So he's making room for the queen. Rook takes c7. Okay, check and knight at e8. Yeah, got him with a dirty trick. Okay, well, you should listen to Mugwort more, I'm afraid. Should listen to me more. No, I think there must have been tons and tons and tons of blunders in that game. I don't even know where to begin. It's just impossible to analyze with the king running around and so many checks and trying to set up forks and mating nets and trying to avoid getting mated with knight takes f3 stuff at the same time. Very, very difficult to analyze. What I did notice was there was a rook on c2 defending f2, so that was another way to avoid getting smother mated. But I think we might have to go a bit far back before you could say black was winning. I'm sure there were moments when black was winning. But yeah, enjoyed the crazy games. Well played with the white pieces today. A couple of games I didn't have much chance with black. But the bishop on f3 and the queen on d1. If you don't take back the bishop on d2, then it's quite hard for me to get any play going. Because I have to avoid trades to keep my king alive, and you can always sack for pawns and bishops, and I have to watch out for mates in the previous game. Okay, GG's. We'll take a break for now. It's about midnight European time, I guess, Friday evening. But I'll be around on the weekend. Haven't got too much going on. See some Aussie streamers like Hey Dale and Daily Insanity and Zelo playing some Bullet Crazyhouse Arenas. But yeah, I was pretty useless in 1-0 against Nuba69 today. GG's, have a good weekend and see you soon.